I'm Kelly Lewis.
And I'm Tiffany Jones, and we're your Revenue Insiders.
If you're enjoying the Revenue Insiders, we'd love your support. Follow us, rate, and leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. Your feedback helps us grow and reach more listeners like you.
I've seen a few things in the RFP response space that, to your point, the AI knowledge they're using is very different than this. Super
Definitely. Yeah, I think what we tried to do really differently was, like you said, the knowledge component, particularly where I started this after leading an ed tech company for 10 years. I was the one person doing thousands of security reviews and RFPs, and just relying on your last answer meant your next project was inherently out of date because your business changes all the time. You ship new features, you change your security posture, you have new client stories. And so the first thing we did was go to the source of knowledge and say, hey, we actually should change the actual information a system like this reads from in order to generate the highest quality possible content.
Hello. Today we have Ben Hills, CEO and founder of Iris, with us. Excited for this conversation. We seem to be having a theme here. We've talked to a couple sales engineering leaders, and now we have a vendor here that specializes in RFP responses and AI generated RFP responses. So excited to have Ben here. Ben, give us a little bit of your background.
Absolutely. One, thank you, Tiffany and Kelly. Great to be here. I'm Ben, co-founder and CEO of Iris, an AI platform that helps organizations respond to RFPs, security questionnaires, proposals, and other sales documentation that rely on really dense institutional knowledge, faster with higher quality responses, and a lot less internal chaos. Little about me, I've been building businesses for a while. My first business was when I was 15, printing custom t-shirts in my parents' garage for sports teams and clubs and activities, which gave me the entrepreneurial bug really early on. Eventually, I landed in the ed tech space where I was working across sales teams, product, and operations. And that's really where the idea for Iris was born. One day, a sales rep had pinged me in a panic, needing an RFP response. It was Friday afternoon, couldn't find the right responses anywhere, and I felt really defeated. I felt like I had done this a bajillion times, and in this really weird scenario where it's not really the responsibility of the sales rep to absorb and know all of this knowledge, but it also felt like it wasn't really good use of my time to feel like a broken record repeatedly doing this work over and over again. I just couldn't stop thinking about that problem. I'm one of those people where when a problem eats at me, it keeps me up at night. And it happened to coincide with the advent of LLMs and AI software. It was my ChatGPT moment. And so just sort of clicked for me that for the first time with technology, we had this opportunity to take unstructured data, primarily institutional knowledge, and transform that into highly structured responses and output. And that is what led to the idea of Iris being born, and the rest is history in the making, as I like to say.
Oh my gosh, Ben, for me, this is so important. As a former sales rep, I remember so many times I was on vacation and a client would send an RFP that was due in 7 days and I was on vacation. And it's not something, as a sales rep, you've got your territory, you've got your quota, you're not going to ask your manager to do. And you can't ask another rep to do. And it's you and your SC or your SE doing this together, but you have to have that personalized touch. And so many times I can remember missing vacations and not being able to actually step out of work because of RFPs. I was in healthcare, so they were constant. And something like this, definitely sure, I've cried a handful of times at work, and definitely one of them was an RFP.
Yeah, we hear that a lot. And I was similar. For my 10 years at the ed tech company, I went everywhere with my backpack and my computer because your goal as a business is to sign more customers. And so I didn't want my sales team's response to a customer to be, I can totally tell you about our security posture, but I need 2 weeks because that erodes trust. I told my team, tell them we'll get it back to them within the next day. And it just meant me pulling out my laptop on dinner and getting the security questionnaire done. But it's really interesting when you dig into institutional knowledge because no one really owns it. And you have a lot of systems that are like repositories of Google Docs or wikis or Notion, but it's really hard because tenured employees feel really stressed out that they're constantly being relied on for nuggets of information. And new employees feel really stupid and afraid to ask for help. And there really, like, genuinely was nothing that could sit in the middle and understand institutional knowledge until LLMs and vector databases and this real like AI technology paradigm became commercially available just in the past 2 years. So I think what you felt is something we hear all the time from folks on sales teams, and it happens at a quota bearing rep level where you're like, I just want to win the deal and to put our best foot forward. It happens at an executive level where, I mean, 10% of RFPs that companies start, they don't even finish because they run out of time or can't find the executive who has the most accurate information.
Yeah.
And it's just a challenge that's really ripe for solution. And the other part of it is, what you're feeling, or what you felt rather, is being felt by an increasing number of people. The use of RFPs as the procurement vehicle has proliferated almost every private sector B2B industry to the point where today, 2/3 of sales cycles transacting $10 trillion a year across oil and gas, professional services, software, hardware, over a dozen industries rely on RFPs. That night you spent crying, unfortunately, is something that lots of folks probably resonate with listening and watching to this, in that it just feels too damn hard to get this information.
Yeah. I mean, first nugget of the episode, everyone cries at work. So that's
true.
a
Everyone
universal
cries at
thing.
work at least once.
So I'd love to know, Ben, from you. So I'm in the buying space for this type of software. I've purchased a few different, legacy, let's call them legacy RFP, like systems in the past. And a lot of them I did this evaluation a year ago. Like, how do we use AI in this space? How is Iris different, or how are you solving this problem differently than some of the players that have been there for a while that are now adopting AI?
Yeah, great question. So the first part that makes Iris really special is in the knowledge. So, one, up until 3 years ago, the way most teams tried to solve this was a repository of every question they'd been asked and every answer they'd given. And you'd maybe command F around and, search the word business continuity plan and find some canned answer used in the past. But they still require you to rewrite and shape that response for the particular prospect you're responding to. What Iris does really differently is we contextualize what I call your primary source information. So we're pulling your latest product release notes, your latest Jira tickets, your latest case studies, your latest marketing collateral, the transcript from the call you had with the prospect. And we're using AI to contextualize all of that to then generate the highest quality possible content shaped for that particular prospect. And the difference is, rather than the first output from the system feeling like those cork boards where you've like cut and pasted from different magazine headers and it looks like they're all different fonts and shapes, your first draft is coherent. It's written in the same style. It's using the most up-to-date information. And the difference is maybe 50 hours of verifying the information's accurate, rewriting it, reshaping it into something that could take just a few hours of maybe some design and some last minute edits in a system like Iris. So that knowledge is really at the core part of it. And one example I always use is when I was in ed tech, we're selling virtual visit software. Well, if we were writing a proposal to the University of Arizona versus Savannah College of Art and Design, it's the same product, but positioned really differently. They have different goals as a prospect. You have different client examples that you want to draw on, even different language you might respond to based on who the buyer and the prospect is. And what we spent a lot of time at Iris doing was focus on quality of content and how you could use Iris to put your best foot forward in every deal cycle and say, rather than just relying on the best fit previous content, let's really shape custom content for every prospect and every proposal we're working on.
Ben, you're just bringing me back to all of the trauma.
We've been in our sales.
There's
We've been in
trauma.
our sales.
I didn't realize how much trauma RFPs have had in my life. I like all these moments are coming back.
Yeah.
The biggest mistake, or not the biggest mistake, the like could kick myself moment I had as a rep once. I said an RFP. This was an RFP I did while I was at in grad school, physically at grad school, like in class trying to do the RFP, also trying to get my master's. The professor was so mad at me. And then I submitted it and I forgot to do spell check. Y'all,
Yeah.
I forgot to do spell check.
Crazy is that used to be a step you had to take.
Well,
the
yeah,
spell check.
totally.
A
Yeah.
manual.
Old. But this still haunts me. I remember it was Kaiser. I was selling to Kaiser, the big health system in Payer, and they were like, just a heads up, you didn't spell check your response. No, it was like,
I also feel like the last few episodes we've been in like our sales engineering era. So I'm like really glad that you're on, Ben. But Kelly is like reliving trauma every single episode. Like this has just been therapy for Kelly in addition to
and like relived empathy for sellers. Oh my gosh.
It's very real trauma. I spoke to someone who won 2 RFPs, biggest for their company, and then lost an RFP because they missed one requirement that the RFP had to be signed with wet ink and not e-signature. And the CRO fired her because she lost so much time from the executive team that when the CEO and CFO and COO were like, why did we lose this deal? And the CRO was like, Jane Doe forgot to sign it with a pen. They were like, Jane Doe must be an idiot. She shouldn't be here anymore. And I mean, the very first RFP
over my spell check.
Yeah, I was a part of. We had to burn the RFP onto a CD-ROM and mail it, and it was like so nerve-wracking just to get it right. But those requirements are sometimes designed as gotchas, where the issuer is looking to make sure you read all the instructions. We actually recently launched our first AI agent product, which is specifically designed at looking for requirements, and it's what many people call the shredding of the RFP. And so you drop an RFP into Iris, and we pull out all the key deadlines, all the key contacts, all the requirements, all the information, and give you this really elegant dashboard. So instead of having to read through a 100-page RFP just to find out, one requirement disqualifies you, you can learn that all up front. And what's been really interesting in working with customers using that product is exactly what you said, just the emotional shift that it causes for teams, where RFP is such a stinky word for people to hear internally that sometimes the sales rep's like, I don't even know if I want to bring this forward. There's a big opportunity here, but my team might get mad at me if it turns out we're not qualified or we don't win it. And technology provides us a really good way to just not have to make people mad at each other anymore. And one of the nice things we hear from teams is they'll say like, our security team and our sales team has never gotten along so well before. They just all of a sudden stop ignoring each other in the hallway and are like, hey, did you win that deal? One person said they actually look forward to getting questionnaires and RFPs because their magic machine Iris is really fun to watch whiz through and generate responses. So there's a neat cultural shift that can happen with the right technology. And I hope it leads to way fewer Kelly's crying and being afraid of it. And more people also focusing on the buyers. Like a lot of people avoid RFPs because they think they're terrible. But the truth is, all of the research behind the increase in RFPs is that buyers are just getting smarter and expecting more. And so buyers are just like, wait a minute, like I don't want to sign a contract after a 3 martini lunch with the person I like best. I want to like actually know what your experience is and what the results are. And like I think that's like a generally net positive for society and buyers, that like they have a better expectation of what they want and they're asking vendors to put their best foot forward.
Yeah.
I think that's great. I also hope that some of those crazy requirements are going away. I remember having to go to a Kinko's FedEx, print, and physically hand deliver RFPs. That was a requirement. You had to hand deliver during like 2 hours on a certain date. Like I had to get on a plane to hand deliver RFPs.
That should go.
Please tell me that's not a thing. I haven't seen that. Like I don't remember that in the last couple of years.
But my next RFP requirement, it's like you must come meet me at this specific coffee shop.
Like it was crazy.
I do. The personalization piece, I think, is so important. There's so many things that happen productivity wise with AI to just make things happen smoother. But I won't name any names, but recently had an RFP out for a solution that I'm looking to buy. And it was a tale of two RFPs. Our incumbent in the space answered blank yes or no's or linked me to their recent notes. And someone else that is trying to win the business had very thoughtful responses, went and followed the podcast and like made their own post about it. Like the personalization effort, like although it's not why you buy, like it indicates how much someone cares about the work that they're doing or cares about you as an account. And so helping to make that to be like the right starting point, I think is a huge level up in productivity for everyone involved in winning something.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because I heard that from another CEO where they said to me they were going to secure a renewal and they just kind of took it for granted. They worked with this client for 3 years, and the client called him up and was like, "Hey, like your team used the wrong prospect's name in the responses, and your answers were like one word. Your competitor like really put their best foot forward, and like, how could I justify not giving them a fair shot and winning the business?" And we're hearing it not just for new sales, but for renewals too.
Yep. Yep.
And it is a really unique opportunity in your RFP response to speak directly to the buyer, to show who you are as a company, to show that level of effort, and to your point, start the relationship. One of the things that I knew from my role at my last company was what happens at the finish line of a deal cycle sets up the map for a successful partnership. And so once you win the RFP, 6 months later, you're in the handoff meeting with the sales team and the customer success team, and you're rereading through it. And so we built a whole part of our platform where when you finish that RFP, we automatically turn it into a handoff plan so that your customer success team can know what the expectations of the buyer were, what you told them you could accomplish, and you can have that alignment throughout the whole customer journey, not just in that one moment and that one blip in working with the client.
That's so powerful because that step gets missed. It's something that I talk to so many of my customers about is like, how are you doing that handoff process? So I love that you're thinking about that as part of the pre-sales process. So I'm curious, since founding Iris, what's been most surprising? So, well, first off, how long ago did Iris come to be and how long have you been selling?
We've been selling since July of 2024, which was when we got
Okay.
our SOC 2 Type 2 certification, which allowed us to start working with enterprises. And in the 6 months preceding that, we were working with two design partners on building our product out.
Okay.
So we're about a year and a half, maybe a year and 9 months into like working on the
That's impressive.
product and about 9 months into selling it.
So what have you found most surprising?
The most surprising part, which feels not surprising as I say out loud, was trust in AI is a lot harder to build with enterprises.
Mhm.
I constantly remind myself that even though to me it was the most exciting, obvious technology to use, getting enterprises and companies to trust the output, trust where the data is being stored, trust the team, trust all of that when you're building something brand new, was really surprising. I thought that because it was all over the news and everyone was talking about it and it was what everyone was looking to bring in their day to day, that everyone would just want to try out AI, and it just didn't end up being the case. And I ended up getting some advice from one of our early investors and advisors, Michael Chasin, who is the founder of Blackboard, who was like, look, Ben, like real change just takes time. Like it will take you a year of working with two customers to then get 20 in your second year, to then get a few hundred in your third year. And all that is showing results and more of the world expecting to use new technology, people learning how to ask the right questions, learning how to trust it. And he ended up being right, unsurprisingly. He saw it with bringing computers and cloud to college campuses. But the trust in AI has been the most surprising, although now looking back at it, it feels not that surprising. I guess that change management was the hardest part.
Yeah. I mean, I think sometimes I live in a tech bubble between Seattle and the work that I do. We do a lot of work on like AI safety and trust at the company that I do my day job for. And I forget how like how much further back some people are in their not adoption, but just in like the education of like how all of this works. Like when you live and breathe it every day, like it can be kind of shocking to be like, oh yeah, this is still super new, and not everyone is like, as familiar with it. What I'm curious, like, what are some of the like really exciting or big results you're seeing from your customers that are adopting it, that are really like bought into to how this is working?
Yeah, so the biggest results from a quantitative standpoint are definitely business won and hours saved. So we work with a client, Corelight, who measured it in a way that I thought was really novel, which was how many sellable hours his SEs and his AEs have in a year. He's like, look, there are 2,080 sellable hours in a year. It typically takes them 60 hours per sales cycle just on project managing and writing an RFP. We trialed Iris and cut that down to 60 minutes. Results speak for themselves. Now, as a result of saving that time, two really interesting things happened at his company. One, they were able to respond to more RFPs and RFIs, and they ended up winning some business that they otherwise weren't going to enter. So they've now been able to enter like entirely new verticals and segments of the industries because of Iris. And the other is pipeline coverage. So, as you both know, typically SEs can only cover a certain percentage of the active deals in a pipeline, and they're often drawn to the top right quadrant of urgent and priority. Like, whatever the biggest deal that's most urgent is what they work on, and every other deal just uses an off the shelf templated proposal, templated response. They've been able to measure higher pipeline coverage by their SEs, where you could say, hey, for every sales cycle, we can now generate a custom business case, a custom proposal, something really shaped for that prospect. And that pipeline coverage has also helped decrease time to close and increase their win rate. Now, from a qualitative standpoint, it's definitely confidence in the culture. And I shared with Kelly when we first met that we hear anecdotally from many CROs that their sales reps are telling them in pipeline meetings they're more confident when they're on calls with prospects, more confident when they're in meetings. They just feel like because they can access this information without having to slack a teammate who might be in the bathroom in the one moment they got asked a question, they generally just have a better presence throughout their day. And similarly, the way they work with other teams has really improved. And it's not something we've measured to date because it's just not something we've honestly thought too hard about how to measure it. But our software really exists at the friction between teams where people are otherwise doing some behind closed doors finger pointing. And it's something that we really want to work with execs on how to measure more directly and show like, hey, teams getting along better because of less friction can lead to more happy customers.
Interesting. Yeah. The like a happy factor that you need to like a score to create for like your customers. That's a fascinating like way to measure. But yeah, I mean, it's obvious like when you talk about it, just hard to like put a formula around.
When you
Yeah.
think about things like retention, that will be really something interesting to measure long term,
Yeah.
because I would definitely stay at a company that had a tool like this versus going to another company where I was still writing RFPs on my
Yeah.
vacation.
We've heard that for sure. And this has been really interesting where we hear what people will say as they've started hiring since this AI boom. They're getting asked in like 75% of the candidate interviews, what AI tools do I get to use for my job? And if you think about it, like 20 years ago, if you were an accountant or a finance major and one firm were like, of course we do everything by hand, who would trust Excel? And the other firm were like, first day at your job, you get a laptop with an Excel license. Like, which firm do you think is going to last longer? And that's starting to happen now as we're hiring people and recruiting people, where like candidates are like, I can only be successful, or rather, the best way for me to be successful at my job
Yeah.
is with certain tools.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so I'm going to switch gears a little bit, and I want to ask you, what, as someone who's grown up in go to market and now a co-founder, what do you wish the younger Ben Hills knew?
Definitely patience. Uh, um, It took me like a number of product launches at my ed tech company and now at Iris to really feel that the physics of business in the world are pretty unmovable, and like real disruption and real change takes time. And I always say like we're bringing a Jetsons era solution to a Flintstones era problem. And that means that people are really ingrained in doing something the same way for a long time. And it just takes a lot of patience to build the buy-in and build the change that will hopefully change the way people do this for the next 100 years. But I think patience is the biggest thing that I wish younger Ben Hills embraced.
That's a good one. I need that right now as well. Building my consulting practice, I could use a little bit more patience. So agreed on that one.
Yes.
No, you're fine. You're good, Cal.
I could use some more patience. As my husband. Okay,
Maybe just a 3 martini lunch with a business decision.
Yeah, 3 martini lunch might also help me. Okay, so this is the point in the episode where we like to ask you a question that you would want each of our listeners to ask themselves. And so part of the Revenue Insiders is creating your own point of view on go to market. And so what question should our listener ask themselves to help create their point of view?
I always like to ask people about what it would mean if they could put their best foot forward with every client interaction and every client sales cycle. And I think in the last software era, everything was focused on automation and incremental improvement and incremental optimization and like getting 10, 20% better here and there. And I think we have a really unique opportunity now with AI driven software to flip a lot of automation on its head and say, what if all the rules were rewritten? If we could really put our best foot forward, whether that means using some of the account intelligence tools to be fully prepared on a call, or using a even note-taking tool to make sure you didn't miss any questions that you got asked by a prospect, like how different would your business be if everyone on your team were putting their best foot forward on every interaction?
It's great. Yeah, I love the mind swap from the quantitative improvements to the qualitative improvements as how to think about this. It's unique as a part of a conversation right now, for sure.
Yeah, everything was just measured and improved based on retroactive fields additions to a CRM, right? Like you do your quarterly retrospective, you wish you had measured certain data, so you add the fields to your CRM, you track it. And because of the tools that exist today and their ability to work with net new knowledge, it's why you see a lot of people talking about like systems of intelligence versus systems of record. I think we have a really unique opportunity to just shift the way we think about running and managing a go-to-market team.
It's so powerful. And after some of the last couple of discussions we've had, Tiffany, with SE leaders, there has been very little investment in technology for sales engineers. And
Yes.
I love that this makes their work-life balance so much better. And you're seeing a lot of success. Remind me, how many customers do you have?
At 100 right now.
Yeah, 100 in less than a year. That's crazy.
Kudos. Yeah.
So
Thank you.
Kudos to you, but it also means that there is a shift in how go-to-market teams are thinking about supporting both their reps and their SEs. So I love that.
And I would say for half to 2/3 of our customers, to your point, this is their first time owning a purchase cycle of a tool like this. And so part of also what we're learning is like how people should evaluate a solution like this and how to evaluate an AI tool. And like you see a lot of people talk about AI tools as like it didn't pass the vibe test. And that's happening, right? Like people will try Iris and other AI tools and just be like, yeah, one of them I liked the responses and one of them I didn't. And everyone's learning how to look at these tools for the first time. I think SEs in particular.
Yeah. Well, this was a great conversation. Thank you so much, Ben, for joining us today. Where can anyone listening find you or find Iris? What's the best place for them to look?
Reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm Ben Hills. Head to our website, heyiris.ai. Feel free to email me, ben@heyiris.ai. Check every email, always respond, and hope to hear from you.
Okay, great. Hopefully you'll hear from a few people because we've had lots of SE conversations. So
Awesome.
that's been our bread and butter the last few weeks. Thank
Great.
you, everyone, for tuning in and listening. If you are not already following us on your favorite podcast platform, please do so. It helps us remind you when new episodes are coming out, but also reach more people who might be interested in this as well. So Spotify, Apple, YouTube, or on LinkedIn. And we will catch everyone next time. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thanks, Ben.
Thank you for having me. Bye.
If you're enjoying the Revenue Insiders, we'd love your support. Follow us, rate, and leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. Your feedback helps us grow and reach more listeners like you.